Hello and welcome back to the channel. As always, I'm your host, Morgan. So today we're going to kind of have a casual video. We're going to be looking at a Scientific American article and a recently published study that's just fascinating to me. It's interesting and I need to share it with people. So something interesting that we're seeing with this whole climate change situation, we already know that it's altering and destroying ecosystems in some cases, but we've noticed that in one case at least, a little crab is now possibly being shifted to the role of Keystone species. And this is the first time that this has been recorded that a new Keystone species has popped up because of climate change. So let's talk about this. Before we dive into the topic, please remember to subscribe if you want more environment, conservation, outdoors, education, sciencey content coming your way. If you find this video at all interesting, please go ahead and give me a like. If you don't like anything that I say, go ahead and give a dislike. Engagement is engagement. And if you have something that you'd like to chat about in regards to this topic, please leave it down in the comment section below. I find that fascinating. All right, so the article itself that we're looking at is titled "Losing Ground, Climate Change is Altering the Rules of Ecosystem Hierarchy. Sea level rise is letting a tiny crab drastically alter marsh landscapes." So we're not going to sit here and read this article like sometimes I do with stuff like this. I'm just kind of going to give you an overview of what's going on, and we're going to discuss it a little bit because, again, it's just something that I read the other day that I found fascinating and I wanted to make a video about. Okay, so basically what's going on here is that they've been looking at a section of the Georgia coastline where there's salt marshes and they're kind of being affected by seawater intrusion and intense storms and flooding. And that's kind of an issue. So they're kind of been looking at that to try to be like, okay, well, what can we do to protect this ecosystem? But something interesting that they noticed was these little tidal crabs that normally wouldn't have that much of an effect on their ecosystem. They're not usually a big player. They're just kind of a species that's there. These crabs have been kind of gorging on the grasses at the heads of these little tidal creeks and kind of changing the landscape there and moving the barriers of these marshes and expanding where the water can flow because the grasses are not there. There is a couple paragraphs here that we are going to read. So, the results published in proceedings of the National Academy of Science, USA, show that the crabs are altering salt marshes' response to sea level rise by gorging on cord grass at the heads of tidal creeks. The researchers say rising water levels caused by climate change have softened marsh soil, creating optimal burrowing conditions for the crabs. The crabs' increased activity then results in longer and broader creeks that drain the marshes into the ocean. Over years, this process transforms marshes from continuous grasslands into patches fractured by crab-grazed creeks. This finding challenges the long-standing paradigm that only water flow, sediment, plants, and human activity, not animals, shape how salt marshes respond to sea level rise. The researchers say this tiny crab may be the first identified organism to reach the status of Keystone species, an organism that has disproportionate importance and influence in its ecosystem because of climate change. It is unlikely to be the last. So that's just absolutely fascinating to me because, one, this is an ecosystem that we already had an understanding about what we thought were the things that could influence salt marshes and how they're going to be affected by climate change. And again, it's bringing this crab that would normally just kind of be a species that's like there in an ecosystem, and all of a sudden they have a bigger role. As of right now, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot more, because this is kind of a preliminary study, but there is a couple of implications that we need to discuss. So one thing that is noted in the article, I have linked both the Scientific American article and the actual research article. I think the research article's open access, but again, it's kind of technical because research articles are technical. That's just the nature of them. But one implication is that the crabs, while they're altering the salt marsh landscape and becoming keystone species, they're destroying protective cover for other animals. And these other animals are noted to be ecologically critical, specifically species of snails and other mollusks. So these crabs are kind of fundamentally fundamentally altering this ecosystem. And it's fascinating because we can predict and model what might happen, but we just don't know yet. Again, this is the first case we're seeing of a species that was not previously considered a keystone species, all of a sudden becoming one, because with the sea level rise, the soil is more moist. With the storm systems, the soil is more moist, so the crabs can actually move up and to these salt marshes, extend their range, and alter this habitat from the kind of massive swath of salty, marshy grassland to little bits and pieces. And then the other thing here is, with this particular study that we're looking at, we can see that the human activities and this climate change are not just damaging ecosystems, it's actually fundamentally changing how some species are interacting with their ecosystem. So yeah, there are more things that need to be done. There's more study that needs to be looked at, but it's fascinating, and it opens a lot more questions in this world of ecology and how we're seeing ecosystems change because of climate change. And this is just going to be another one of those questions that needs to be answered and open up another avenue for research in this whole ecology world. And it is noted that climate change, while it's very detrimental to ecosystems, it is giving several species dangerous advantages. While most species have not been risen to the level and having enough impact to be considered keystone species on their particular environments, this crab is. We do see this in things in like ocean ecosystems, where ocean acidification is making it so it's easier for predators of corals to eat the corals and possibly decimate coral reefs beyond what they're already being decimated at. And then we see things like invasive species in areas where native plants are being kind of outcompeted by the invasive plants because the climate is fundamentally shifting and these exotic plants have an advantage. But this is just one more thing that opens up the question of, are we going to now start identifying more keystone species that are fundamentally changing ecosystems that we already thought we had at least a baseline understanding of? And it's just fascinating because there's more questions. They need to figure out exactly how the interactions with this particular species is having on its environment and with other species, how that's going to change and what else we're going to see in this particular changing ecosystem. So I am beginning to ramble here, so I'm going to wrap it up. This is just fascinating that climate change, we already knew it was going to fundamentally alter ecosystems and species interactions, but it's fascinating to see a new keystone species popping up and fundamentally changing one particular ecosystem and the implications that this could have on others. So I do encourage you to go read the Scientific American article. It's not too in-depth. It's pretty accessible. Scientific American is pretty good about that. And if anything, it's fascinating. I think it's fascinating. Maybe I'm just a nerd, but I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, afternoon, evening, night, what have you. I will see you all in the next one. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Thank you again for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell if you would like to see more. And if you'd like to follow me on any of my other social medias, the links are down in the description below. Don't forget to check out thereptilegoth.com for all of my articles and blog posts. If you found any value in this video and you would like to help support the channel, please check out my Patreon page. That link is also in the description down below. And a special thanks goes out to my Diamond Dragon patron, Diane B. What you're doing is really helping me fund a dream here. I will see you guys all in the next one.